Hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today for international students about your IELTS exams and your immigration options. I'd like to welcome you all. My name is Elizabeth Lawn. I'm an immigration lawyer, a Canadian immigration lawyer at the law firm of Law Mangoji. And with me, I have Zia Sumar, who is another immigration lawyer at our firm. And today we're very fortunate to have IDP join us. Yumin Guak and Zetz Zan. They are special counselors at IDP who help with IELTS exams, and well, they help administer the IELTS exams, and they also work with students to help find programs as well. So welcome, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. So Yumin, would you like to start and tell us what you guys are all about?
Sure. So I'd like to share the screen first. Okay. Is my screen working?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, you're sharing the client, you're sharing an Excel spreadsheet.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. So is it better now? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Yumin. I'm education counselor at IDP. I'm honored and I'm feeling very pleased to introduce IDP. I don't know how many of you are familiar with our company, but we've been around for 50 years. And then we're very proud of having the largest number of offices all over the world for international student recruitment to other countries like the US, Canada, and all different countries from all over the world. And also we are proudly co-owning IELTS exam as well. And then we have a subject matter expert, Zest, and then she will introduce IELTS exam and how things are going on under this crisis. So hopefully you get some information you want. And then I would like to congratulate everybody because it's a rare chance to have this whole comprehensive compound information from IELTS and the admission process and then immigration. So whatever your plan is, whatever your goal is in your pinnacle, then I'm sure it will be informational time for you. And then let's move on to IDP Canada, what we can offer, what kind of services we have for you. So we launched our office. We launched our office in 2020, early 2020. It's been a little bit more than a year. And we've been serving students in Canada for their admissions and study permit extension as well. It's a five people of us, and from Korea, China, Taiwan, and India. So we helping our students in our based on our understanding of cultural background and then our experience in the international education sector. So all of us are experiencing in the public and private education, and especially international education as well. And of course, we have a fair good amount of knowledge in immigration in terms of, we're not legally professional, except one person in-house ICIC member, Karan, but we mainly give the services for admissions and study permit extension. So how we can help you? We have more than 90+ partner schools, colleges and universities in Canada. So we have exclusive partnerships with language schools and colleges and universities across Canada, which means it will broaden your opportunity to get into your dream school. So we have the largest number of partnerships with the schools as well. And also, so our admission process services is free of charge, so we don't have to pay for us. So I know this sounds absurd, but yes, we don't charge you, and then we don't charge you either for study permit extension. As long as you go through with the school, you get admission through us. Why? Because we have strong strategy in this business for the first 2 years. So we can change it later on, but this is a really good chance for you to have the most affordable services when it comes to your application and admission process for Canadian education. So we also provide opportunity for you to meet your prospective school, like school representatives, like Humber College, Ryerson University, and Centennial College, you name it. And also, like today, we work with Elizabeth to come up with this event to give you most up-to-date, credible information to you when it comes to immigration. So the last slide, I don't think I need to share it with you because this is all sum up of whatever I explained. And then so I just wanted to touch base on what's available for you at this moment, because now it's September intake, it's coming. So a lot of you might having hard time to get admissions. You feel like you are rushing to get an admission to extend to your study permit, and you don't know what to do about how you're going to settle your stay, you secure your status in Canada. So there are opportunities still. Centennial, Humber College, Canadore, and then Algonquin colleges, they're giving last-minute offers. Last-minute offers means they're gonna give their empty seats, because a lot of international students who applied from overseas Canada, they lost their chance to come into Canada in time to start their program. So the colleges and universities, they're open their doors for onshore students who have valid study permit. So the chances are still here. And then a lot of cases, so we get application fee waived. So it is important to be connected with us for most up-to-date opportunities for you. Okay, so I would like to pass on to Zest for your information for IELTS, and then good luck.
Thank you. And you know what? I just wanted to add something. You guys as an organization is probably the organization that I refer students to the most in terms in terms of finding programs. Students will often ask me, oh, what program should I do? How much is the tuition? Where should I go? And what, program should I do to further my chances to find a job? And I'm not an expert in this. So I always refer them to you guys who are experts. And it's amazing that your service is free. They don't have to pay anything and they get such great service. And you guys help them with their, with finding the program. So I've always been very impressed with you guys.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth, for your support. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you very much, Yumi and Elizabeth, for your great introduction for IDP, Student Placement Service Department. And here I am to give you updates for the IELTS test. So before March, life are going well and we have no worries about anything. And then all of a sudden the pandemic comes in and make our life upside down. And IELTS test, as you may all know, has been suspended for a very long time. But we are very lucky during this time with the effort of Canadian government that's do everything they can to support its people and make sure that people are safe and to contain the virus. There are a lot of economic activities are able to resume in a lot of places in Canada. So is the IELTS test. So the IELTS tests are now resumed. This is a great news. I will reassure you that this is happening and in a lot of places. So today I'm going to guide you to find more of the information. And then, so here you are. Once you go into the IELTS website, what you want to go for, it's the IELTSCanadaTest.com. So this is the IDP website for the IELTS test. And once you go there, you will find now find open centers. So you click it. And from there, you are able to see all the up-to-date information on test locations and availability listed there. So now across the world, there are around 87 countries resume the IELTS test. If you are outside of Canada, I suggest you to check IELTS.org for the information. And if you're inside Canada, please go to the IELTSCanadaTest.com. So from here, you see there are 6 provinces now resume the IELTS test in Ontario, in Alberta, in British Columbia, Manitoba, Quebec, and Nova Scotia. You may see that the bigger city you are in, the higher chances and more test locations you will find for the IELTS test resumption. So if you are staying in a smaller city, I suggest you to expand your search range and you may be able to find a test. So if you have already used a website, you might find that, okay, some of the test location has been booked fully for the next several weeks. So here I want to just assure everyone, don't panic. This is happening because there is a huge backlog for the IELTS test during the last several months. And the test has been ready and released and being booked very soon. So what I want to tell everyone is if you have already booked, secured your IELTS test, congratulations. If you are still waiting for an IELTS test, the best chance is to check in the website that I mentioned, IELTSCanadaTest.com, because we will provide the most up-to-date information on this website as soon as possible we have it. And we are going to update the website on a very frequent basis, like on a daily basis or on a weekly basis. So you will find information very helpful there. At the same time, if you already booked your IELTS test, you will receive an instruction from the test center telling you what to do and the safety and the health regulations align with the local laws. So please make sure you read your email and following instruction while you go into the test center. We want to make sure that your safety and health is our priority and will provide you a safe environment as well. No matter you have booked an IELTS test or you are waiting for an IELTS test, I think one of the most important things to do right now is to keep practicing, because I cannot reinforce more that practice makes the perfect. So IELTS test is such a test that you have to practice, practice, and practice. And there are a lot of great resources I want to share with you. So IELTSessentials.com is one of the best websites that stored all of the information, and a lot of the resources are free. For example, we have IELTS blog written by IELTS expert. We have computer-delivered fan test to guide you through the IELTS test and have an experience before you go into the IELTS test. And we also have this resource I want to reinforce today. It's called the IELTS Progress Check. This is one of the only, it's actually the only official online practice test with IELTS. So as long as you have Wi-Fi and you have a computer, you only need to pay 57 Canadian dollars plus tax. You will have access to this online practice test. This practice test will cover all 4 modules: your listening, your reading, your writing, and your speaking, where speaking will be towards a computer. So once you're done, all the responses will be sent into the IELTS official marking center, and they will mark it and provide you an indicative result with a detailed feedback report. This is very good because you will have the extensive experience for going to a real IELTS test by using the practice test from home. So if you're pursuing immigration, then it is the general practice test that I recommend you to. If you are applying for universities, then it is the academic practice test to go for. So this is available for both general and practice and academic test. So I think that concludes my updates for the IELTS reopen and prep tips for the IELTS test. And now I'll pass on to Elizabeth and your team to give more information regarding the regulation on the during the pandemic for international students and immigrants.
Thank you so much, Cess. I just wanted to remind everyone that the IELTS, as you'll see when we talk about permanent residence, is one of the biggest hurdles that a lot of people have to go through in order to be able to qualify for permanent residence. And it doesn't matter if English is your first language, your only language, if you, or not, right? It is an exam. And so, and it has a certain format. And so it is very important that you guys are able to get familiarized with the exam. And this link, this progress check link, is probably a link that I send out to, I would say, 80% of people who come for consultations, because I need everyone to practice it. I don't care, even if your English is fantastic or you think your English is fantastic, it's worth it. Just the $56 is worth it to familiarize yourself with the exam. Okay? They didn't pay me, by the way, to say any of this, I promise you. Okay?
Yes,
all right,
that is true.
Let's get started with my presentation on immigration. Okay, so first of all, guys, I just wanted to show you guys right here on the bottom there, you're gonna have a Q&A. If you click on that, if you have any questions during the presentation, Zia is going to be answering your questions during the presentation. And at the end, Zia and I will be talking about some of the immigration questions that you have. Also, Zess and Yumin are here, so if you have questions about IDP, about IELTS, feel free to ask there as well. Okay, so let's talk about immigration. But before we talk about permanent residence, there are a few concepts that I wanted to talk with you about that you need to understand before you become a permanent resident. One of the most important things here is implied status. So if you have a study permit, a work permit, or visitor status in Canada, you have what's called temporary residence. What temporary residence is that it's temporary. You will have an end date on your study permit or work permit or visitor record. And at the end of that, you will likely lose your status if you don't apply to extend your status. What implied status means is if you apply even on the day of to extend your status, the website says 30 days, but that's a recommendation, that is not the law. As long as you apply before your status expires, as long as you submitted it properly, you can continue on with that previous status as long as you don't change the status. So if you are applying to extend your study permit, right, you can continue on with your study permit status until a decision is made. Now, this is really important. It's always been very important, but especially during COVID times, a lot of times applications may take a long time to process. If you have filed your application before it expires, you can continue on until a decision is made. You will continue to have status in Canada. If you do not, however, if you file it after your study permit expires, then you don't have status. You normally have 90 days from the time that you lose your status to restore your status, okay? However, last week we just had an announcement that the government during COVID times is giving a lot more leeway for you to apply to restore your status. If you had your status until January 30th and you've lost your status since January 30th, you now have until the end of the year, December 31st, to file a restoration of status. That is very big for people who may have lost your status and didn't know enough to apply within the 90 days, okay? In general, what I would tell you, don't lose your status. Even if you don't have all of the documents that you think you need, file your application and at least buy yourself some time. To file an application properly, you need to file the fees, you need to file the proper forms, and you need to press that button and get that letter from immigration that says that you have filed the application. All those things will indicate that you have filed your application properly. The second concept that I want to talk to you guys about is working in a high-skilled or a low-skilled position. For the most part, right now, in order to apply and qualify for permanent residence, it's all about working in high-skilled positions. There are a few that allow you now to apply for low-skilled, but they're very restricted. For the most part, it's high-skilled positions. What's high-skilled? What's low-skilled? The government has essentially classified all occupations in Canada under 5 occupations. NOC O, A, and B are high-skilled. NOC C and D are low-skilled. So, you know, what's under NOC O, A, and B, and what's under C and D? Well, let me give you some examples. Let's play a little game here. I'm going to say an occupation. You tell me whether you think it's high-skilled or low-skilled. Okay? Let's start with the office. A receptionist, low-skilled. An assistant, secretary, high-skilled. A bookkeeper, high-skilled. Accounting clerk, low-skilled. A medical assistant, high-skilled. A dental assistant, low-skilled. Okay, so, you know, if you haven't played this game before with me, I bet you that you'll probably get at least 1 or 2 wrong. And that's the point I'm trying to make, is that it's not always altogether clear what's high-skilled or what's low-skilled, but it's very important for you yourself to make sure that the job that you're going to be doing is considered high-skilled, or the job that you were doing before is considered high-skilled or low-skilled, in order to know whether or not it's worth it for you to take that job if you really want to get permanent residence. Let me go through a few important points that you have to understand during this weird time that we are in right now. Currently, if you are outside of Canada, there is a travel ban for international students who have not received study permit approvals by March 18th. So if you're applying from now to come into Canada before March 18th, like after March 18th, and you don't have your approval yet, you won't be able to get on the plane yet until the travel ban is over, okay? Furthermore, even if you have an approval and before March 18th, and you're able to come to Canada, if your classes are all online, the officer may not allow you to enter Canada, because the officer, even at the airport, the immigration officer can say, well, I don't think that your entry to Canada is non-discretionary and non-optional. You don't have to be in Canada at this point. All your classes are online, and they would reject it, okay? So for those people who are already in Canada and you feel the need to travel, you better really, really need it. And you better need to show that you must be in Canada afterwards when you come back. Usually if you have resided in Canada, they might give an exception to that, but you never know, okay? It is still risky for you to leave Canada and come back. But for people who have never lived in Canada before, if all of your classes are online, and even if you can get to the airport, you should be prepared that you may be turned away. Mm-hmm. If you hold a study permit and are inside Canada, you can study online. And although we had this rule before that if your online studies are over 50%, you can't get the post-grad work permit, IRCC has confirmed that it doesn't matter how much of your program is online, it will contribute to your post-grad work permit as long as over 50% of your program was done while you were in Canada. If your classes are canceled and you have to study part-time, you can still work on a part-time basis while the normal classes were supposed to be in place, unless it's essential services, and then you can work full-time until the end of the summer. So this is new as well. This came about last year. If you are applying for temporary status inside Canada, so if you're applying for your study permit inside Canada, you don't need to get biometrics anymore. Okay, now this might be taken away after when the biometric centers open again. All of these rules, you know, we did a webinar with IDP just around the time that COVID started. I think it was March or April. And these rules weren't in place. A lot of these rules weren't in, some of them were, but a lot of them weren't. These rules are changing all of the time. Right now, this is the situation. Okay, so right now, because biometric centers are not open in Canada, the government has finally said that people who are applying for your work permit, study permit, or visitor visas or visitors extensions inside Canada, you do not need to take biometrics. Like I said, if you are currently in Canada, you had status on January 30th, but you've lost your status, you have until now, not the normal 90 days, but until December 31st to file your restoration of status. All right, let's talk a little bit more about what you can do while you're studying and working on a study permit, okay? So here's the situation. In order for you to keep your study permit status, your student status, it's not just good enough for you to have a valid study permit. You can still lose your status if you are not actively pursuing your studies within 90 days. So if you are not on a scheduled break or an authorized leave, or where you have received permission from the school to allow you to leave, and you don't study for 90 days, then you lose your studies. You lose your study status, okay, student status. So always try to maintain your status, okay? Like we talked about the implied status, you can still apply online. Just because of COVID doesn't mean you can't submit it online. So there is no excuse for you not to submit it online, okay? As long as you submit it properly, even if you can't get certain documents, explain it to immigration and let them know that you will submit them afterwards, okay? It's still better than you just not filing the application. Working while you are studying, here's the situation. You can work while you are a full-time student, except in the last semester. In the last semester, they do allow you to work part-time, to study part-time and still work. And even in the last semester, you can actually work full-time, okay? During COVID times, you can work part-time if your classes are canceled, or if your classes are only, you know, some of the classes are canceled, you can work part-time during that time, okay? If you are in between programs, say you've completed one program and you're going to complete another program, and the second program, you've been accepted into the second program, and the space in between them is around one semester, 150 days, less than 150 days, you can work during the two programs, in between the two programs on a full-time basis, okay? During COVID times, you can work in full-time while you're a full-time student if you're working in essential services. Now, here is the very important thing that a lot of students get wrong. Once you finish your studies, once you receive that notification from your school that you've completed your program, you are no longer a student, and therefore you cannot work based on your study permit, okay? It's not a scheduled break once you've finished your studies anymore. Okay, So how can you work afterwards? Well, for most of you, it's going to be the post-grad work permit. So first of all, first question about post-grad work permit. Should you apply for post-grad work permit? Okay. A lot of people think, oh, I qualify for post-grad work permit. I can just apply for it. Why not? Right? I qualify for it now. Okay. But you have to understand, first of all, that the post-grad work permit is a golden ticket. You only get one of these golden tickets in your lifetime. So you better not waste it. Why is it a golden ticket? It's because it's an open work permit. You can work anywhere you like. It's quite easy for you to qualify for. You just have to graduate from your program. But you will not be able to do it again. Usually, for someone to obtain a work permit, they have to go through an LMIA. An LMIA where an employer has to not only offer them a job, but they have to advertise for Canadians to find this job. And during COVID times, there's a lot of Canadians who are unemployed and they're looking for work. And the employer has to show that they can't find any other Canadians who are willing and able to do the job before they can apply for the LMIA and get the LMIA to support the work permit. Think about how difficult that is. I would let you know that for most of the time, employers are not really willing to do the LMIA unless you're extremely, extremely specialized. And even if they are, it can be very difficult to do get the approval for the LMIA if you don't show that you have the specialized skills, or it's not a job that can easily find Canadians to do the work. Okay? So don't waste your post-grad work permit. The length of time of your post-grad work permit coincides with how long your own program is for. So if you have a 1-year program, you get a 1-year work permit. 2-year program, you get a 3-year work permit. You can do a 1-year program and then do another 1-year program. If you finish the second program within 2 years, you will get a 3-year work permit at the end as well. Right? 1 + 1 = 3 in this case. And oftentimes, not everyone, some people can get their permanent residence within that 1-year period of time, but a lot of people will need that 3-year work permit to give you enough time to get the work experience, to get the job offers, etc., for you to qualify and get the permanent residence. Okay, so in order to qualify for the post-grad work permit, it used to be very easy to apply for a post-grad work permit. You just basically, show that you've completed your program, get a letter from the school, and you get the post-grad. Prior to us entering the COVID times, there were more and more and more rejections of post-grad work permits because IRCC started cracking down on things such as maintaining full-time status during the entirety of your program, right? And so even sometimes people who had reasons such as they were ill and they only did part-time, they had other life circumstances, they were still rejected for the post-grad work permit, okay? Now they are going to make some exceptions for canceled classes during COVID. And if you are going to be quite ill, okay, what I a lot of times will suggest to you is take the entire semester off, get authorized leave from the school. If you get authorized leave from the school, you take the entire semester off, you will still qualify for post-grad work permit compared to if you did part-time only. That might disqualify you from the post-grad work permit. Okay. Sorry, and also the final semester, like I said, it can be part-time. Often the IRCC recognizes sometimes you're just missing 1 or 2 classes, and they'll allow you to do part-time for the last semester. So here is the very important rule to understand about the postgrad work permit, okay? What I want you to keep in mind as to when you need to apply for the postgrad work permit is this. You need to apply for the postgrad work permit the earliest of when your study permit is going to expire and within 90 days of the completion of your program. Why do I say 90 days when on the website it says 180 days? The reason is this. In order to qualify to work, okay, in order to qualify to work on your postgrad work, while you're waiting for your postgrad work permit, if you submit the postgrad work permit during these conditions, when your study permit is still valid and within 90 days of the completion of your program, then you can start working right away while waiting for the postgrad work permit. Even if your postgrad work permit takes 3 months, 4 months to get, you can work right away when you have applied for your postgrad work permit. If you apply after 90 days, guess what happens? Remember one of the first slides I had showed you that says you lose your student status after 90 days? Well, this is what happens. If you apply after 90 days, you don't have status anymore. So if you don't have status anymore, you actually can't qualify for postgrad work permit. You can apply for restoration of status, but you can't actually work while you're waiting for that. Okay? So it's a long story short. This is the rule. Apply when your study permit is still valid, when you've completed your program, and within 90 days, whichever comes first, study permit expires or 90 days. You know, it used to be before COVID, students would say, you know what, I'm just going to go to the border and I can apply for the work permit. I can get it right there and then. During COVID times, you can't do that anymore. They're not allowing flag polling, which is you go around the flag, drive to the US, go around the flag and come back. They're not allowing that anymore. So you have to go online and make your application online. And therefore, why is it very important for you to be able to work while you're waiting for your work permit? Is because a lot of these work permits could take quite a long time to process. Okay? All right. We're going to start talking about permanent residence now. The first type of permanent residence that I'm going to talk to you guys about is the express entry system. Most of you have probably heard about it. Let's just go through the basics quite quick to make sure that we are all on the same page. So, how does express entry work? In order to apply, first you have to create an online profile. You get to create an online profile if you qualify under the skilled worker class, Canadian experience class, or the skilled trades class. Once you create a profile, you can enter the express entry pool and you'll get a series of points called the CRS points based on your background and if you have provincial nomination. Every 2 weeks, the government will have a draw where they announce a number. They also announce the category, okay? And if you're in the category that they have selected and you are in your number is above that number that they have announced, then you will receive an invitation to apply. It is only after you receive the invitation to apply that you can actually submit your application. When you get into the express entry pool, you have not made an application yet, okay? So the question is not just as to how you can get into the pool, it's also how to get out. All right, so first of all, let's talk about how you can even get into the pool. The first category, the federal skilled worker category, is a category where many people, even if they have not studied in Canada, even if they are still students in Canada, may already qualify them to get into the program. In order to qualify under this program, first of all, you need to have the relevant work experience. What kind of work experience do you need? You need 1 year of continuous, high-skilled, full-time work experience in one occupation, okay? Notice what I did not say. I did not say that this work experience has to be in Canada. It can be anywhere in the world. I did not say that this work experience has to be when you've graduated from your program. We apply for a lot of PhD, master's students who have work experience from TARA work, okay? It can be work while you are in school. It can be work while you are self-employed, okay? You say, oh, that's not what I heard. Well, that's because this is the federal skilled work class. This is not the Canadian experience class, which I will talk about afterwards, okay? We have a lot of people who are applying from outside of Canada, okay, who qualify and get permanent residence without ever stepping foot in Canada. Other conditions of this category is that you have to pass the English exams, the IELTS, you have to get 6.0 in each category. That's just the minimum to get into the pool. That's likely not going to be enough for you to get out of the pool. Okay, we'll get to that afterwards. You need to have some financial savings, around 13,000 Canadian for one person. If you add more family members, you add a few thousand for each. Okay, and then we look at your background and we do a federal skilled worker score for you. This is not the score afterwards, the CRS score. This is you have to pass 67 points to get into the pool. The second category is a Canadian experience class. This one is a very particular work experience. It's very different from the work experience required for the federal skilled worker class. To qualify under the Canadian experience class, the work experience that you need is 1 year of high-skilled work experience in Canada in the last 3 years of application, where you are employed and you are not a full-time student, and it's legal, okay? So this kind of work experience you cannot gain while you are a full-time student. It has to be in Canada, and it's very important that you have to be employed, okay? You can't, you can't just say to someone, oh yeah, I'm going to be, working with you. You can just give me some money under the table, or they say, oh, I'm gonna give you a T4A. You have to get a T4 where your payroll has income tax, CPP, EI deducted from it. Okay, and also you cannot be self-employed, which means that you cannot just create a company and then hire yourself. Okay, you have to be employed. Do not think that this work experience has to be in your field. It does not have to be related to your studies. Okay, this work experience just has to be high skilled. We talked about what high skilled is. Knock O, A, and B. You also do need to pass language exams for this. It's similar to the federal skilled worker class, but like I said, the language exams to get in doesn't matter as much. It's not going to likely be enough. The minimum is not likely going to be enough. We're looking at much higher in order for you to get selected out. Okay. The final one is the skilled trades, and those are for people in the construction trades and cooks or chefs. You either need to have an LMIA or the provincial certification, trade certification. Okay. Now, looking at all of these three, before COVID, it used to be that almost all of the draws were for everybody. There was no distinguishment. It doesn't matter how you got into the pool. If your points met the level, you were able to get an invitation to apply. During COVID, however, it has been much more interesting, okay? So from the mid-March to 2 weeks ago, the government was only drawing people under Canadian experience class. And as a result, the points dropped from the 470s to, I think the last one was 430. Then what happened is 2 weeks ago, the government decided to have another draw where they invited everyone. And people under federal skilled worker were then invited, and the draw was, I think, 478. I think it's been today that there was just a draw where they again only invited people under Canadian experience class. And Zia will know the exact score, but it was in the 440s. Okay, so what does all of this mean? I don't think it's hopeless if you only qualify under the federal skilled worker class to have another draw during this time. Certainly, I think after travel ban is over, they will likely go back to normal and draw everybody again, okay? But if you qualify under the Canadian experience class, now is the time to put yourself in there if you think that your points weren't as high before, okay? Go and redo your IELTS, because if they are only inviting people under the Canadian experience class, guess what? The pool gets a lot smaller. So here I have just a simplified diagram of pool, people in the pool, right? Juan has 415, Anna has 401, Jing has 436, Trupti has 501. If the straw was 478, who gets through? Well, Trupti, if the draw is for everybody and Trupti is everybody, but let's say Trupti is in the federal skilled worker class, and the draw was only for people in the Canadian experience class, and the draw was 430. Who's going to get through? Well, only Jing, right? So people often ask me, why are the points going to go up? Are the points going to go down? What do you think? The points are going up and down based on who is in the pool and who is eligible to be drawn. The government normally draws 3,000 to 4,000 people each time. So as a result, they take the top 3,000, 4,000 in the category. And if they are only going to invite people under the Canadian experience class, then the numbers will likely go down, because people like Trupti, who might be only under the federal skilled worker class, they're not going to be considered. That's why if you qualify under the Canadian experience class, now might be the time to put yourself in the pool, okay? All right, so let's talk about numbers. Let's talk about how you get your score. First of all, age, okay? Basically, when it gets to your 30th birthday, it's no longer a happy birthday, okay? Your birthday, every time it's your birthday, your points would drop by 5 or 6 points. When it's your 40th birthday, your points start dropping 10 points, 11 points. When it's your 45th birthday, the good news is it doesn't go down anymore. Bad news is you get a big fat 0. Okay, compared to people in their 20s who get 110, 100 points to that point, it's a big difference. Not a lot you can do about age except apply earlier rather than later. Education, oftentimes in order to get to the 470s, right, without work experience in Canada, we're looking at 2 degrees where 1 degree is 3 years or more. But for you guys who have studied in Canada, worked in Canada, often 1 degree may be enough, although I do find that a lot of people who maybe only have 1 degree and it's less than 3 years, your points do go down, and so your English has to be quite good along with the work experience in Canada. Okay, that's why the how long your post-grad work permit is for is very important, especially during these times when it's difficult to find a job. You may not be able to find a job right away when you graduate. And if you only have a 1-year work permit, it may be difficult for you to get your 1-year high-skilled work experience before that work permit expires. Language is one of the biggest separators of people who can get an invitation and people who cannot. Normally, if you don't have any work experience in Canada, I would be looking at 7s in reading, writing, and speaking, and an 8 in listening at least to get you somewhere close to the score. If you do have work experience, 1-year high-skilled work experience that qualifies, under the Canadian experience class type of work experience that I talked about, then we still want to get scores similar to that, but maybe 1 or 2 that are lower might be okay. Okay, so the relevant work experience, which is the Canadian experience class work experience, where you're working in Canada, not when you're a full-time student and you're employed and you're in a high-skilled position, that can give you quite a lot of points. If you have worked overseas in a high-skilled work experience, you can also get some points there. If you have, it's 2 different levels, 1 to 2 years or 3 years. Spouses, oftentimes spouses may not add as much unless they have very high education, they can have high language points, they will add some points to your application. In general, their points are not as important as your points, but oftentimes those few points that they can add could make a difference. So we have to do an evaluation oftentimes on the family as a whole to see whether or not you or your spouse may be able to get the points. Okay. Provincial nominee programs, we're going to be talking about that. Provincial nominee programs that are express entry linked are the only provincial nominee programs that will give you 600 points for this. It's not every provincial nominee program. We're going to be looking at the OINP, the Ontario's provincial nominee program, in detail after this. Okay. If you've studied in Canada, you will get some points. Arranged employment. A lot of people think, oh, I have arranged employment if I have a job offer. No, that's not necessarily true. You can only get arranged employment if you either have an LMIA or an employer-specific work permit. Open work permits do not qualify for arranged employment. If you have siblings who are Canadians or permanent residents, you get a few points there. Ability to speak fluent French. If you're a French speaker, you're in luck, okay? Go do your French exam. You may get a lot of more points because of your fluency in French, okay? And trade certification. This is only for people who are in the construction trades, cooks, chefs, okay? Okay, so, take a look at that list, and some of you may be very happy. You may think, oh man, my points are going to go through the roof. This is good. Other people may not be so happy, and you might be a little bit worried. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about other things that you can do. Okay, so first of all, the OINP is the Ontario's Provincial Nominee Program. What is a provincial nominee program? Essentially, immigration is federal jurisdiction. The federal government is responsible for immigration in Canada. But the federal government has allowed each and every province to make their own programs. And so they can select who they want to get in to qualify for permanent residence. Now, provincial nominee programs can be divided into 2 kinds of programs. One is express entry linked, and the other one is not express entry linked. the Express Entry linked provincial nominee programs will give you 600 points if you are already in Express Entry pool, and 600 added to any score that you have will automatically allow you to get the invitation to apply. Okay, so Ontario, how it works, every province has their own way. Okay, and here's how it works with Ontario. In Ontario, you have to first be in the Express Entry pool. You can't just apply directly to the Ontario, okay? It's kind of like, you know, Bumble, the dating app, right? Guys, I mean, I've never been on it. I'm too old for this. But what I have heard is men cannot contact the women, right? The woman has to contact you, okay? So in this kind of situation, okay, you're kind of like the guy, right? You're in the app, you're in the pool. The Ontario government is like the woman. They'll contact you if you like them. You can't contact them directly, okay? If they like you, they will give you an expression of interest and ask you to apply with them. And then if you want to apply with them, you can apply with them for 600 more points. So what would make them like you? The first one, the human capital one, is the one that is the most ubiquitous. We actually don't know for sure who they like, and they often don't know for sure right away who they like. They make up their minds often, you know, just down the road, okay? There is one thing that they have expressed that they do want is called the tech draws. There are a list of occupations that are IT related that they have said, well, we really want IT workers. And if you have a certain score above a certain number and you have experience in that occupation, we will have a draw where they announce a number. It might not be as high as the ITA number for Express Entry, but it will be not that low, right? Oftentimes in the mid 400s, but maybe you might just need a little bump and they might invite you to apply with them. They have invited tech draws that are in the 470s during COVID times, but for people under the federal skilled worker class, because otherwise you're not going to be able to apply. So by the way, every draw, there seems to be 2 draws recently. There seems to be one draw for Canadian experience class and another draw for people who have provincial nomination. Okay, so if you have been drawn under the tech draws, you can then apply, likely can get an ITA. There are other ones where they have other occupations. They sometimes have invited people who have job offers. They have sometimes invited people who are at a certain level for points. You never know, okay? But you know, there's a chance that they may like you. In order to qualify for this, though, you must have a bachelor's degree or higher. The second one that they invite, it's another draw that they have, is the skilled trades. So people who have work experience in Ontario under one of the trades, and most of these trades are the construction trades and bakers as well, okay? And like there's a whole list of this. So if you have 1 year work experience in Ontario, one of these trades, and you're in the pool, and oftentimes the numbers for their draw, they'll still have a number, but it could be something in the 200s or 300s. They'll invite you to apply with them for 600 more points. So it's 1 year of work experience in the last 2 years. Okay. The last one is the French speaking. Again, French speakers, lucky guys. So if you have you have to do your TEF exam for French, and then you also do the IELTS to get your English exam, okay? They'll still have a draw for a number, but it would likely be lower than the ITA draw number. To qualify for this, you still have to have a bachelor's degree or higher. Okay, so those are the different categories for express entry linked OINPs. Now, let's stop talking about express entry. I'm tired. You're probably tired, right? Let's talk about other options other than express entry. So these categories are OINPs, but they have nothing to do with express entry. And I'm going to talk mainly about the employer-based one. There is one for PhD students. There is one for master's students. The one for master's students is basically, it can open and shut in a few minutes and is extremely difficult to get in. I think the government has been talking about changing that program for a very long time. They may be changing it soon. It's not open. The PhD one is, I believe it's open. I'll have to double check on that. But the PhD one is if you graduated from a PhD program in Ontario, you don't need a job offer and you can apply under that program, okay? But this employer-based one is the one that is quite interesting to a lot of people. How it works is you have to have a job offer from an employer. And the employer, first of all, has to meet requirements. If they are inside the GTA, they have to have a gross income of 1 million, at least 1 million last fiscal year, 5 full-time Canadian or permanent resident employees, and be in business for 3 years. If they're outside of the GTA, the gross income has to be over 500,000, have 3 full-time Canadian or permanent resident employees, and be in business for 3 years. The job offer that they offer you has to be full-time and permanent. This is the basic one. Now, after that, there are a few categories of the kind of jobs and the kind of categories. The first one is the international student one. In order to qualify for this, you have to apply within 2 years of graduating from your program in Canada. It has to be either a 2-year program or a 1-year post-grad program in a public university or college in Canada. Okay? And basically, it has to be a high-skilled position and it has to meet the entry-level wage. That's it. Okay? Notice I didn't talk about age, I didn't talk about language points, I didn't talk about any other educational requirements other than this. This program, we used to be able to apply throughout the year. However, because the points for express entry had been so high, this program became so popular that this year, when it opened in February, it was open and closed in a matter of minutes. Okay? It hasn't been open again this year. We don't know if it will be open again this year or not. But it could be open next year, likely open next year in February. Okay. The second one just opened a couple days ago for half an hour, and it is the one for people who they don't qualify under you don't need to have graduated from the program, but your job offer has to be high skilled and the salary has to meet the median level wage. You have to have 2 years of work experience. In international student, you don't need any work experience. You can apply right when you graduate and you have that job offer. Under the federal, foreign worker stream, I call the skilled worker one because it has to be skilled, high skilled. You have to have 2 years of work experience in the last 5 years in the same occupation as the one that you have been offered. Okay, right now this program is closed. Maybe it might reopen again this year. We'll see. The last one is still open. It's open throughout the year, okay? And this one is the in demand. This is the only one that I've talked about thus far that is an occupation that's low skilled, okay? It's not any low skilled job, however, the job has to be on the list, okay? And they just actually updated the list to include a lot more occupations if you get a job offer outside of the GTA, okay? In order to qualify, you have to have 9 months of work experience in Ontario in the occupation, and then you can apply. There's a lot of farm workers, truck drivers. They have now included sewing machine operators if you're outside of the GTA. There's a whole list of installers. There's a whole list of jobs, and that might be something that a lot of you who might have difficulty finding work, you might want to consider that, because these jobs right now, they are really looking for workers, and you could qualify for permanent residence under this program. A lot of people have been asking me about the RNIP. The RNIP, first of all, is you have to get a recommendation for a participating community. A lot of the communities that were on the list, they haven't even opened yet, right? Some of the communities have. And it's not just a matter of you applying to them. You have to qualify as well. So either you have 1 year of qualifying work experience, or you've graduated from the study program that is in the community, 2 years or more, or if it's a master's or PhD, it can be less than 2 years, okay? But the most important thing is you have to, and I'm gonna take that out of score. This is for another, it's a specific one area, but you have to have a qualifying job offer in the community for the most part, okay? This is for Sault Ste. Marie. I'm gonna need to take this off. The different places have their own different qualifying needs, but for the most part, the job offer has to be on a list, and that job offer has to be from a business that is within that community. You also need to meet language benchmarks, but they are much lower than the express entry. You either have to work in Canada or have settlement funds. For the most part, for you guys who have work permits, you should be working with the employer. Okay. Caregiver program is another thing, especially for those who are in the early childcare education program. And a lot of the daycares are closed, right? But you might think about this. How the caregiver program works is if you work for 2 years taking care of children, elderly, or disabled person in their own homes. You don't have to live with them. You just have to go to their homes and care for them. Okay, and if you have an open work permit, you can do that, especially with a 3-year work permit. You have 1 year post-secondary education credential. You meet the CLB benchmark of 5. So that would be 5 in 3 of the IELTS, 3 of the programs, with 4, I think, in reading. Right? You can qualify for it. It's that simple. You just have to have that work experience. Okay? All right. So, talked a lot about different programs, and you might be feeling a little bit overwhelmed. Let me simplify this for you. Okay? What should you do? First of all, you have to have a plan on what you need to do for your own immigration goals. What I've talked about is a general overview of some of the options. It's not all of the options. I could go on and on for hours. In fact, I do. This week I'm doing 3 webinars. Next week I'm doing another webinar on entrepreneurs. You guys are welcome to attend that. That will be Wednesday at 8 a.m. For entrepreneur, if you're entrepreneurial, okay? Whatever it is, your own personal plan should not be based on your friends or on something you see on the internet. Okay, go to a good lawyer to get your own personal plan. Immigration, half of the success of immigration is planning, proper planning on what you need to do. You may not qualify right away, you may already. Whatever it is, you need to know what you need to do to get to your immigration goals. And when you know, you gotta work at it. You gotta study and take those practice exams for the IELTS. Make sure you can get those points. If you need to do the IELTS, make sure you need to do it. Make sure you do the programs. Don't just apply right away for your post-grad work permit just because you qualify and you only get a 1-year post-grad, for example. Okay, make sure you do what you need to do. And make sure that you can, right now if times are difficult, make sure you have a backup plan, right? As to if you can't find the job that you're hoping that you're going to get, what are you going to do? Do you have enough time on your work permit to do so? Make sure you stay in status. It is always so heartbreaking for me to have a client come to me and say, oh, you know, I didn't renew my study permit. I let it elapse and here I am a year later. What do I do then? Or, oh, my work permit, I was missing this document, or I just didn't submit it in time. Now, you know, it's been 6 months. What do I do? Okay. When you have been out of status, especially if you've been out of status past restoration period, the government will no longer trust you to get temporary status. And so if you can't get temporary status, oftentimes getting permanent residence is much, much, much more difficult. So whatever you do, try to make sure that you are continually legally in Canada, okay? And that has to go back to your plan. If you don't plan, you may not be able to do so, right? But whatever it is, don't think that it's okay to be out of status. It absolutely is not. Okay. If your application is rejected, contact a good lawyer right away. You know, the immigration system is not it's not like a department store or commercial, like Airbnb, or, you can't just call the call center and expect and complain to them and expect everything to be okay. Yeah, IRCC has a call center, but those agents who are there, first of all, they're not immigration officers, and they often give mistaken advice to you. And second of all, they're not there to help you get your status back. Their job is to provide some information on your case. I call them if I need to know what's the deal with an application, where is it, and they may give me some information, sometimes they don't. But you can't just, say, this is wrong, help me, and expect everything to be okay, all right? Oftentimes, if your application is rejected, you call the call center, they'll tell you, go send a letter into IRCC. Okay, so you start drafting a letter and you send it to them, and then they reject it. And then you say, oh, now I'm in trouble, I need to find a lawyer. If you then come to me, what I'm going to say is, you know what, first of all, you may be out of time to file a judicial review with the federal court, because the time to do so is 15 days from the date of rejection. Or second of all, I could have made an application for reconsideration, putting in proper documentation, proper arguments. But by you sending a letter in, you already did your reconsideration, and IRCC, they're probably not going to look at anything I give to them, because they say you already had a kick at the can. We only consider one reconsideration, we're not going to consider you. okay? You may also be out of time to file a restoration of status as well. So all of these things you have to understand is very, very time sensitive. Don't think that you can call the call center, everything is okay. Make sure you get proper advice on what can be done in your situation on a timely basis. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys this information for our firm. If you want to contact us for personal consultations, do let us know that you've watched this seminar at this webinar, and we can provide you with a discounted rate as well. We have a COVID-19 update page where we try to update on all of the new policies and laws that keep coming out as well, so check that out. And we also put a lot of information, the new news and such on our social media as well. Okay? All right, Zia, let's talk about some of these questions that people have been having.
Wonderful. Yes, we've gotten some great questions today. So I'll jump right in. Elizabeth, can international students work full-time during COVID?
So it will depend. It's not a general overall yes or no question, right? It depends on your situation. If you are, and we outlined this in the beginning of the program, if you are studying full-time on your study permit, then you can work part-time while you're attending classes, unless it's essential services during the summer. The government has only, maybe they will extend it afterwards, but right now it's only during the summer. I think, is it August 31st, Sia?
It's August 31st, yeah.
Until August 31st, you can work in essential services full-time. If you are on a scheduled break, and scheduled breaks are determined by the school, not a COVID break, a scheduled break, okay, you can work full-time if you still have your study permit. If you don't have your study permit, you're not a full-time student, you don't have status, you can't work at all. And that goes to this period of time when you graduate. Shall we talk about that, Zia?
That's going to be one of my next questions.
You're
so
always
right
asking
ahead.
me this question because everybody asks this question, right?
But before you get into that, Liz,
Okay.
you mentioned essential services, right? You said that
Yeah.
someone can work in essential services full-time right now. Just want to mention that there is a list on IRCC's website, correct?
That's right. That's right. Don't just think,
Perfect.
well, I think it's essential, or it's Ontario government said it's a stage 1 essential. There's a specifically defined list on IRCC.
Perfect.
Okay. Okay, next.
So when you're talking about working and working part-time during the school year, what happens if your classes are completely online right now, or if your school's completely shut down possibly? So because of COVID, are you able to still work on your study permit?
So if you're still a full-time student, doesn't matter if your classes are online or not, you can work part-time. If your classes are shut down because of COVID, you can work part-time.
Fantastic. Great.
Okay.
Now, can you revisit when you can work at the end of your program? And if you can incorporate also the 90 versus 180 days, if you can go over all of that again.
Okay. So when you're doing your exams, you're still a full-time student, you can work part-time, okay? When you finish your studies, before you get any notification that you are, you get your, you've completed your program, you're still a student, work part-time. When you get that notification, whether it's online on your account, whether you get a letter, whether it's your transcript, that you have completed the program, the first of whenever you get that, you have to stop working because you're no longer a full-time student. You can work again if you applied for your post-grad work permit appropriately, okay? And even if you don't get your post-grad work permit right away, you can work while waiting for the post-grad work permit. Now, what are the conditions of applying for your post-grad work permit appropriately so you can work? You have to apply for your postgrad work permit while you still have status and while you still have a study permit. So if your study permit is still valid and you apply for your postgrad work permit, that is one of the conditions. Now, your study permit, your student status becomes invalid 90 days from the date that you stop studying. That's why the 90 days is there. If you start apply just for your postgrad work permit after 90 days without filing an extension of your status, you're going to have it rejected because you don't have status. You can't qualify for a postgrad work permit. If you don't have your student status and your study permit has expired and you apply for the postgrad work permit, even if you're a visitor, you cannot work while you're waiting for the postgrad work permit. So rule is 90 days from the date that you've completed your studies or when your study permit expires, whichever comes first.
So many dates to keep in mind.
90 days or the study permit, whichever comes first. Just keep that in mind.
Got it. Now, if you get your postgrad work permit, let's say you're only eligible for a 1 year, and unfortunately with COVID, it has been a little bit more difficult to find jobs. Has IRCC said anything about providing extensions to get more time on the postgrad work permit, or how are they dealing with being able to qualify for permanent residence?
I'm going to let you guys know the harsh truth is that IRCC immigration does not really put you guys getting permanent residence as a priority right now, okay? Their priority is for Canadians who are voting for them to the government to be able to get jobs. So do not assume that the government is going to extend postgrad work permits for you. Maybe I'm wrong, and if I'm wrong, I'd be the happiest person in the world for you guys. But just pragmatically, from my experience, I don't think that they're going to extend it. IRCC, the minister certainly has made no indication that they would extend the postgrad work permit for students, okay? So based on that assumption, you'll have to make sure that you have a postgrad work permit that is long enough for you to qualify for permanent residence.
So this is where you were talking about being able to plan and making sure that you have a plan A, plan B.
Yeah, I think in these kind of times, plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, just to make sure.
And how does one set out a plan A, plan B, plan C?
Well, usually, we basically have consultations that last sometimes well over an hour, right? And talk about different options. Everybody is so different, aren't they? Everybody has their own goals, what is important, what you can do, what your abilities are.
Different experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. And you really can't rely on what your friends did. What friends do is very different from what you can do. And please don't just go on the internet and, let your life depend on a forum. Okay?
For sure. Good advice. You mentioned that right now for COVID, you're able to start your program online outside of Canada, but you still have to maintain 50%, at least 50% of your program has to be done inside of Canada.
Yeah.
Is there, I guess that's the rule right now. Is it possible that that could change so that we can see 100% of the program, or more than 50 at least? I guess, is it possible? And if so, how do we find out about it?
Yeah, very possible that they could change this. When did they change this rule about the outside of Canada, the AIPs, and was that just last week that they changed it?
The AIPs, yeah, the AIP just started last week, but being able to study up to 50% has kind of been around for a couple weeks now.
Yeah. But the policies that you can see, it very well could change. What I'm saying today is true today, but very well could change tomorrow or the next week, and likely will change in a month, right? So how do you keep it up to date? IRCC has their webpage, but as a lot of you may know, when you go on there, it can be quite confusing. We have an update page here on COVID that we try to keep updated. Sometimes it's hard to put everything on right away. But normally what happens is our clients basically just come to us and ask us, once we have a consultation, and ask us, for updates, and we're happy to do that with them. Okay.
And then one last question. If you got stuck overseas, you held a work permit or a study permit, but you're stuck overseas and your permit is expiring, what do you do?
Mm-hmm. If you have a study permit, okay, you can get on that plane and you can come to Canada. Now, you'll have to explain to the officer why is it that you need to be in Canada. The need has to be non-discretionary, non-optional. Sometimes officers have let people in because this is your home. This is the only place that you have a home, okay? So you may be able to enter this way. I don't encourage people to travel for fun right now outside of the country, okay? Because there's always a possibility the officer doesn't think that your entry to Canada is non-optional, non-discretionary. If your study permit is going to expire, have no other choice, get on that plane, and you can try to make your case at the border. Everybody is different, so we would have to have a consultation with you to see what your specific case is about.
Perfect. Thanks, Elizabeth. I think that's all the time that we have for questions today.
Perfect. Okay, do we have any questions and Zest, Zest, are you there? You have to.
Yes, I'm here. So thank you very much. I think that's very informative. I just want to wish everyone really good luck for the IELTS test if you are waiting for an IELTS test or if you have already booked. And the last thing I just want to repeat is where to find the IELTS test and the availability. It's IELTSCanadaTest.com, where you can find the most up-to-date information.
Okay, thank you guys so much. Thank you everyone for coming. Stay safe, guys. Stay healthy. Take care.
Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.